Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is the 7th of March. Where is the year going to already? And I hope that you've had a great week so far. And here we are again with another exciting new backdrop behind us at this time. Let us know whether you like this one more or less than the one from last week. We're changing it up for you every week. And thank you for your fantastic questions that have been coming in over the course of this week. So many to get through. We're probably not going to get through them all today, but we're definitely going to keep them on the list for the next week. There's been some absolute crackers coming in this week. So once again, please keep sending in your fantastic questions via michaelscottacademic@gmail.com or direct to the Facebook page, facebook.com/michaelscottacademic. Hello, Patricia, how are you doing? Thanks everyone for joining in. And it is a prize week this week. So yes, every month we give a prize for the best question that has been asked and which I've got around to answering during the live Q&As, or indeed this month as well, looking at the questions that came in from the inaugural lecture. Hi, Catherine. You like the backdrop more, yeah? Is it flowers, is it leaves, or is it balloons? I can't really decide, but I think people might like this one a little bit better, as it's just a tad less busy than the one from last week. Hello, Marion. How are you doing? So yes, it is prize week this week, and we've had some great questions that we've got around to over the last month. We've been thinking about Hannibal's elephants in the Alps. We're thinking about temples and higher spiritual energies. We've been thinking about the rules surrounding ancient sanctuaries, what to do, which ancient site would you visit during its heyday. We've been thinking about our Valentine's theme quiz, about ancient love and indeed even ancient sexual positions. We've been thinking about the Golden Age. We've been thinking about the what-if history of historical events that happened in a slightly different way. And we've been thinking about classical myth, and indeed about the classical world as it's utilised in video games, films, and other kinds of literature. So what a wide range, fantastic range, reflecting all your fantastic questions. Hi Alexis, how are you doing? Great that you could join in. Thank you. From Sydney, it's 3 a.m. Dora, how are you doing? And thank you so much for waking up, or indeed perhaps just getting in from a night out on the town and settling in with the Q&A before heading to bed. Thank you so much for joining in from the other side of the world. So the prize this week goes to, in my view, having looked again at all the questions that have been asked, the prize goes to Shavini Correa, who asked the question. I think it was a very bold question to ask, to have the guts to ask, which was, what advice would you give to a young person who's so passionate to take up history at university but doesn't get much support from their family due to the popular misconceptions about the use of history, difficulty of getting a job, etc., etc. So, Shavini, we answered your question last week. Hopefully we gave you some ideas about how to defend yourself and your desires to study history against those kind of accusations. Hopefully we've inspired you to keep up the fight and to keep up pursuing your love of history. And on top of that, we'd like to award you this month's prize, which is a copy of my book, Ancient Worlds. So something to help with your learning of history. So please, Shavini, get in touch via the Facebook page, send us an email with your address, and we'll get a copy of that book signed and out to you. Let us know any dedication you'd like, and congratulations again to you, and really let us know what you end up doing. If you end up pursuing a history at university, we would love to know. Good afternoon, Anthony. Good afternoon, Jonathan. How are you doing? It's really good to see you on the Q&A. What are some of the most egregious interpretations of antiquity for political reasons? From Jonathan Dunn, just come in over live feed now. Well, I think a really good place to go for that is actually online to the Pharos project. So if you Google Pharos, Pharos, this is an American-based project that is looking to document for the first time some of the most egregious and outrageous uses of the ancient world as justification for a whole range of actions that we would find absolutely abhorrent in the modern world, particularly in the US right now. And this is particularly important because some of these outright wing groups are now officially being invited to the White House, given its present incumbent. So from that perspective, I think the work of the Pharos Project is incredibly important, and it's showing kind of a whole range of complete misuses of the ancient world to try and justify a whole set of modern behaviours. And that is nothing new. That's something that's been happening ever since the ancient world, and probably will continue. And it's part of the reason why I think people who are interested in the ancient world, and particularly ancient Greece Greece and Rome, and classicists like myself and like yourselves need to get really involved in this. We need to be challenging those misuses of the ancient world as much as we possibly can. So thank you very much for that. Great. Better wallpaper, great questions coming in. Thank you so much. Yeah, as I was saying, we've had some fantastic questions from you all this last week. And we're going to start off with one that came in from Saskia Jane, which is, who do you think was the most powerful woman from ancient Greece or Rome? Okay, great question, and so many choices. I put it back to you guys. Who do you think was the most powerful woman from ancient Greece or Rome? Well, in ancient Greece, we have to think about also both, I guess, mythology as well as reality. And there are tons of powerful women in ancient Greek myth, women who challenged the sort of normal template of how a woman was supposed to behave, and often kind of completely upset and overturned the status quo of society. I'm thinking of characters like Medea or Clytemnestra, or indeed the Queen of the Amazons, Penthesilea. But if you move into Greek history as well, then there are incredibly powerful women, often the kind of power behind the throne in some ways. So I'm thinking like Olympias, the mother of Alexander the Great, or indeed you can start to see from the 4th century BC onwards, you start to see female consorts ruling, indeed so ruling after the death of their husbands. You start to hear about great, and then as you move into the Roman world, you get incredibly powerful female figures in Roman politics. So think about the mother of the Emperor Augustus, think about, I said mother of, but also the wife of the Emperor Augustus, Livia Drusilla, but also then zoom forward to some of the greatest foes that the Roman world had to take on the battlefield. Think about Cleopatra, think about Zenobia, queen of Palmyra in the 3rd century, trying to lead Palmyra in revolt against the Roman Empire, and indeed ended up getting squashed. Or dial forward to the 4th century CE and think about Helen, the mother of Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, the emperor who moved the capital of the Roman world from Rome to Constantinople, named after himself, modest chap that he was, the old city of Byzantium, modern day Istanbul, but indeed it was his mother Helen who was one of the kind of most early staunch advocates of Christianity, and is seen as being incredibly instrumental in encouraging Constantine towards his path of being not just not anti-Christianity, but actually it's allowing it to flourish alongside the different religions that were part of the Roman world at the time. So Catherine Woods has come in with Cornelia Africana. Ooh, excellent choice. Tell us more. Why does she merit your the most powerful woman in ancient Greece or Rome? Medea from Jules, absolutely, another absolute classic in Greek myth. We love Boudica, of course, another of the great women to take on the Roman world. Of course, Patricia, thank you. I should have put her alongside Cleopatra and Zenobia as well. So yeah, great women surrounding Rome on all sides and challenging its ability to expand and defend its own boundaries and borders, and indeed keep internal peace at different points and times. Great suggestions from you. So thank you very much for that, Saskia. Great question. Who is the most powerful woman from ancient Greece or Rome? And we've also had a great question come in here that follows on from this a little bit, from Bertrand Dugas, or is that Dugas? I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your surname. Does history always have to be written by the sword or the gun? Okay. Does history always have to be written by the sword or the gun? So I'm taking from that as a question that does history always turn around big military battles and events? Is it warfare that makes history turn? And indeed, actually, the module I teach at Warwick, Ancient Global History, our students have just been completing their term, their assessed piece of work for this term. They just handed in a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions there that I set for them was war kind of the most important factor in encouraging global connections and global connectivity between the different states and empires and worlds that were part of the ancient Silk Roads between the Mediterranean and China? So Bertrand Bertrand, it's as if you've been taking those classes and coming in and putting in the question. And I could hopefully, I can't bring any of the students today to put forward their answers to the questions, but maybe we should do that on a blog of some kind so that everyone can see some of their students' answers. Hello from Chile, Alvaro, lovely that you could join us. Thank you so much indeed. So Linda Montague has responded already to Bertrand's question about does history have to be written by the sword or the gun, by saying transport was a big factor. Absolutely, Linda, I completely agree with you. Does history turn always on battles? No, I don't think it does. Kind of often it's the most obvious thing that we see, because a battle is a big key event that happens at one place at one time. It has an immediate impact and effect. There's a winner, there's a loser, and there have to be immediate ramifications from that single moment. But I don't think it means that that's the only kind of key turner of history. Other things have massive importance, although their impact and their ability to turn history might be slightly slower and over a longer time period, and thus perhaps less immediately noticeable to us. So, like Linda suggests, kind of the ability to move things from one place to another, transport. If we go back even a step further than that, think about geography. Simply geography. A lot of historians right now are starting to think more and more about this as the first factor you have to consider when you're trying to understand why things happen in history, is simply the geography of the locations. And this has been really apparent to us while we've been looking at an ancient global history as part of this undergraduate module at Warwick this year. Because when you put in the mountainous landscapes onto that geographical map stretching from the Mediterranean to China, suddenly the difficulties of connections between particular cultures and places become very apparent. I'm thinking about the Tarim Basin, the Taklamakan Desert between China and Central Asia, the Pamir Mountains, the Hindu Kush, kind of all of these mountainous ranges that have to be overcome in some ways for actually then connectivity and interaction to happen between cultures. So I think geography is an absolute key factor here. And then I think wrapped in with transport, as Linda suggests, trade. Trade is kind of another one of the big things around which history turns. The ability to kind of move goods and thus to kind of make money, and for states and empires through tax to gain money through trade is another massive factor around which history turns. I think it's one of the big things that's often left out of Rome's story, for instance, that in the 1st century CE, when Rome discovers how to sail the monsoon winds across the Indian Ocean direct to India, it sees a six-fold increase, something like that, in the amount of money that then is coming back in to the Roman Empire through Egypt, and which it's able to tax. So you see in the 1st century CE a massive increase in the tax revenues raised by the Roman Empire, and it's no coincidence that is also the time period when you see some of the big expansion movements of the Roman Empire, which have been facilitated very simply by the fact that they can now go off and pay soldiers to conquer because they've got the money coming in from tax on trade. So I think that's another kind of great reason in which we can see trade as being one of the big turners of history. Alison Barber suggested engineering and building. Absolutely. Scientific discovery, engineering discovery, or indeed just discovery like I suggested when the Romans worked out how to sail with the monsoon wind straight across the Indian Ocean to India. Those kinds of discoveries of know-how are absolutely crucial as turns to history. I missed out the Sahara Desert. Absolutely another of the key geographical problems, the deserts kind of that need to be crossed in order to connect up communities. You're absolutely right. What about art and literature, Rajrupa suggests? Now, does history ever turn around art and literature? That would be a fantastic essay or exam question to set the students. You've really all got me thinking now. Does history turn around art and literature? What do you think? Does art and literature have the power to turn history? I think in some ways, yes, it does, because it's about ideas, isn't it? And at the end of the day, we can talk about engineering, we can talk about geography, we can talk about trade, we can talk about war, but ideas also turn history, and the formats in which ideas get amplified, discussed, debated, profiled, publicised, engaged with, will often be within arts and literature. So I'm thinking about some of the great ideas also that then get carried along with trade as well. So we were just looking in ancient global history last week at the way that Buddhism moves up out of India and spreads east to China in the 1st, 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, as Buddhist monks, with their missionary zeal, moved, Buddhist ideas and Buddhist texts moved with trade, alongside kind of other forms of art and literature. So yeah, I think art and literature does have the power to turn history, because it is fundamentally a forum for ideas, and ideas perhaps are the most powerful thing that turns history, even if they do it much more imperceptibly than a battle. Ciao from Fiesole, you're coming to us from Italy. Hello Latifa, hello, how are you doing? James, I'm glad you like the background this week, so glad. So Bertram, absolutely fantastic question there. Does history always have to be written by the sword of the gun? I think our answer is saying no. There's lots of things around which history turns, even if battles are some of the most obvious. And I think you're absolutely right, Bertram, as well, that we've too often perhaps written history from the perspective that it does turn around battles, because they make easy things to be the focus of historical narratives of change. You can easily get your head around and write about a battle. It's much harder to get your head around and write about slightly more imperceptible, longer term agents of change, like ideas or trade or transport or art literature. So thank you for that. What a fantastic question. We are going to take a break from those and do a little bit of what's on and what's in the news. So we've had lots of interesting stuff coming in this week. Hi Latifa, thank you. Relaxing background indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Kind of from Il Messaggero, kind of from an Italian newspaper, about talking about the Serapeum. If you've got a chance to be in Italy anytime soon, and you get a chance to get to Hadrian's Villa at Tivoli, there's going to be a new exciting opening, because for a long time the rooms of the Serapeum, so the religious space dedicated to the worship of the god Serapis, at Hadrian's Villa at Tivoli, have long been off limits to the public, so-called for security reasons, but they are being opened to the public. So they're going to go open to the public on the 22nd of March. So if you have a chance to get to Hadrian's Villa in Tivoli, do get there soon. And we'll put up an article about it on the Facebook page. It's in Italian from the Italian newspaper, but you can use Google Translate to get a sense of it. Or I'm sure if you Google about the opening of the Serapeum at Hadrian's Villa, you'll be able to find information as well. So let us know if you get a chance to go there. Send us your pictures like you've been doing, that we put up in the great file of pictures on the Facebook page that you've taken in archaeological and ancient sites around the world. Keep them coming in, and if you get to the Serapeum, let us know and send us a picture. If we move over into Egypt, there's a New Kingdom workshop that's been discovered down near Aswan in Egypt. So they've even discovered part of a new sphinx, a large ram-headed sphinx in the workshop area of this New Kingdom workshop. So a roughly cut coiled cobra has been found embedded in the walls of the workshop. Kind of absolutely fantastic discovery. So we look forward to hearing more about that, and you can see the link on the Facebook page. And then in terms of what's on, well, lots going on. If you are interested in studying classics and you've applied to study with us at Warwick Classics, then you may be coming to one of our offer holder open days this Saturday on the 9th of March. I'm going to be at Warwick all day as part of the offer holder open day, so hope to see you then. Hello Julia from Poole, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Then also on Saturday at Warwick, we've got a great conference that's being organised by a number of our postdoctoral students and indeed spoken in by a number of my PhD students, which is Fleshing Out Words, Poetry on Objects, from classical epigrams to modern light poems. If you have a fancy about joining that, I'm sure you can come along and have a listen. So again, we'll put the link up on the website, and do let them know if you'd like to come along. Next week, on next Thursday, I am going to be in Northern Ireland. I'm going to be in Belfast and talking to the Classical Association of Northern Ireland as part of the Schools Day that they're organising for all the school students that can get to us in Belfast for a day of lectures. And I'm going to be talking about understanding the Oracle at Delphi with them, so I can't wait to do that. And also, that's a Thursday, so there's a Q&A coming live, and next week we are going to be coming live from Belfast, and indeed I'm going to be joined by Helen McVeigh, who is the chair of the Classical Association in Northern Ireland, and we are going to be joint answering some questions together. So if you've got questions about classics Northern Ireland, about Northern Ireland ancient history, about questions for Helen and for me about the ancient Greek or Roman worlds, do send them in the normal way. I'll be sharing the questions with Helen, and she will be answering one or two of her own choice from the list, and we'll be joint answering some others. So that's next week, next Thursday, normal time, 4 o'clock. We'll be over in Belfast, and it'll be Helen and I co-presenting the live Q&A and answering your questions and having a great discussion. So we're really looking forward to that, and hopefully you guys can all tune in as well. And then, of course, we mentioned this a little while ago when it first was announced, but they have been filming, they have finished filming. If you follow Greg Jenner on the Twitter feed, you'll know that he's actually got a small role in this film, and that it's now wrapped and is editing, and it is hitting our screens on the 26th of July this year. It's incredibly exciting. This is The Horrible Histories, the movie, and it's about the Rotten Romans. Absolutely fantastic. So the Rotten Romans are getting their own movie through in the Horrible Histories scale, and it's got a brilliant plot to it. I won't spoil too much of it. We'll put a little teaser up on the Facebook page, and but everyone book your tickets in to see that as soon as possible. Horrible Histories, the movie, starring, it's got Sebastian Croft, Amelia Jones, Nick Frost, Craig Roberts, Kim Cattrall, and Greg Jenner as well, who many of you will be familiar with from Twitter and elsewhere. So come, make sure you've got your tickets in for that. That sounds like it's going to be an absolutely fantastic, unmissable event to go and see at the cinemas. And talking about things to watch online, also to flag with you that the professional the professional video of my professorial inaugural lecture from Wednesday the 20th of February is now available on my YouTube channel. So there's a link to it on the Facebook page as well as through my website, and I've put up a new blog today also about the experience of giving that professorial inaugural lecture that you can get to if you go to my website, michaelscottweb.com, and click on the blogs link, and you'll see that there. And this professional video of the inaugural lecture has much better sound quality than the Facebook live video did, which a number of you commented on. So if you had trouble hearing for any reason from the Facebook live, you can see the professional video that's been done with 3 different camera angles, and incorporates the PowerPoint slides as well, so you can see the PowerPoint slides to their full glory. So check that out on the YouTube channel via the Facebook page or via my website, and have a look at the blog as well. And also on my YouTube channel recently has been uploaded another video of a lecture I gave for the Classics Drama Festival back in January, where we were gathering together, and we had about 550 school kids came together, and we were watching a version of Aristophanes' Frogs put on by the Warwick Classics undergraduates, and then surrounding that was a number of lectures put on by the staff, including one by me, and I was talking about the historical context of the performance of Aristophanes' Frogs at the very end of the 5th century BC, as Athens was teetering on the brink of winning and losing the Peloponnesian War against Sparta. So you can see that full lecture there. That's now uploaded on the YouTube channel as well. So lots to watch in growing anticipation of the big event in July, which is the release of Horrible Histories, the movie. Right, we've got time for a couple more questions. I'm so glad to see you getting also as excited as me about the Horrible Histories movie. So Caroline Nicklin wrote in after our conversation on Facebook on the live video chat last week, saying that she is a lawyer, and she's been using Latin phrases as part of being a lawyer, like Cicero's cui bono, who benefits, and very useful. All those Latin phrases are to really kind of get to the heart of a matter, she finds. She was asking whether the ancient Greeks have any similarly useful sayings that we could benefit from in modern times. Well, Caroline, of course the Greeks do. The Greeks have everything. I'm reminded of one of the first sort of times I fell in love with Greece, watching My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the movie. And indeed, when I first went to spend a lot of time, a decent amount of time in Greece, the only modern Greek I could speak, as opposed to ancient Greek, were the phrases of modern Greek offered in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. So it was great things like kind of Christos Anesti, Happy Easter, and kind kind of ekotreahidia, which I won't translate for you. Those of you who speak modern Greek will know, or indeed those who know the film will know very well indeed. But you will remember the father character in My Big Fat Greek Wedding would famously say, the Greeks kind of invented everything, kind of, the Greeks have a word for this, the Greeks kind of, give me a word, any word, and I show you how the root of that word is Greek, and there we go. So yes, of course, the Greeks have some great sets of sayings which still apply to the modern world. I mean, some of my personal favourites are coming from Delphi, and the great sayings of the Delphic oracle that were supposedly inscribed above the entrance to the temple of Apollo at Delphi, which was Gnothi Salton, which means know thyself. So perhaps not particularly applicable to the world of law, but certainly to life more generally. And then Meden Agan, nothing in excess. I think that's one we should definitely remember to live by a little bit more than we possibly currently do. Linda suggests the Greeks invented Facebook. Of course they did. The Greeks invented everything. And as it goes on in the Big Fat Greek Wedding, isn't it? Kind of like, okay, Mr. Podokalis, how about the word kimono? Kimono, kimono, kimono. It comes from the Greek word himona, which means winter. What do you need in winter? You need a robe. There you go. So there we go. Kind of, as we say, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, an absolute classic marker for anyone who's interested in understanding the Greek world. Absolutely fantastic. So send in, if you've got any Greek phrases that you really enjoy and you really like and think are applicable for the modern world, do let us know what they are and why you think they're particularly applicable. That would be absolutely fantastic. But Caroline, thank you very much for that question. Can we squeeze one more in? Yes, we can. Maria Marku says, I would like to know about the interpretation of dreams in ancient Greece and Rome. Hello, Maria, you're there, and we've got your question in. The interpretation of dreams in ancient Greece and Rome, really, really interesting area. I haven't got a huge amount of time to go into it, but one of the things that I'd point to is to sanctuaries of Asclepius, the god Asclepius, the healing god. Now, there are fantastic sanctuaries of Asclepius scattered across Greece. There's one in Athens. He gets sort of invited into Athens and made part of the Athenian pantheon, and by the end of the 5th century BCE, given a temple at the foot of the Acropolis. But of course, the great one is at Epidaurus, the sanctuary of Asclepius at Epidaurus, which has the extraordinary theatre, the beautifully preserved, huge theatre in it, but it is also a huge healing sanctuary. And we know the process here was that if people were ill in the ancient world, they would come to the sanctuary of the god Asclepius, they would pay a small amount of money, of course, to the priest, and then they would get to sleep in the temple of Asclepius overnight. And what was hoped or expected was that you would be visited in your dream by the god Asclepius, who would give you, either he would cure you through your dream or would give you an indication of how to go about being cured. And then you would wake up in the morning with the kind of knowledge at hand through the dream to be able to cure yourself, or indeed, as I said, already cured. Now, there's lots of discussion about whether or not the priests were giving the people who slept in the temple some kind of hallucinogenic or kind of trip-inducing thing to drink before they went to sleep to encourage them to have these dreams, these more wild dreams. That's very much more difficult to prove. And it's also the case that alongside the kind of dream cure method, they were also practicing in these sanctuaries some basic, what we would call today, medical treatments and remedies as well. So coming to these sanctuaries, it was a sort of mix of both kind of hope for dream remedy from the god, real medical remedy being given by and administered by the priests in the sanctuary, and indeed outside the sanctuary at Epidaurus, surviving to us today, are a whole series of inscriptions, texts which are success stories, where people have come to the sanctuary and they've had this problem and that problem and whatever problem, and that they have been cured, and then they've sort of written it up as on the front walls of the sanctuary as a sort of kind of, I guess, TripAdvisor review, ancient kind of TripAdvisor review, saying this is a great place. I turned up here and I had an arrow in my lung and I'd seeped 40 bowls of pus before I got here, but afterwards I went away fine. And there's even a story in those lists of a blind man who was given his sight back, and of a broken bowl that the god decided to fix as well. So it wasn't just humans that got fixed when they went to the sanctuaries of Asclepius. Vidya, you're saying this concept is also present in ancient Egypt. Great, the idea of dream cures being available in ancient Egypt, really interesting. Richardina, hello from Siena, thank you so much for joining in. So kind of fantastic. I think we could explore more here about dreams. Absolutely, dreams are a kind of understudied area, I think, of scholarship about the ancient Greek and Roman worlds, but they are a key part of them. The question is, how do we get at them? Who tells us about their dreams, so that we can understand a little bit more about what the ancient Greeks and Romans dreamt about? There's a question to end on. What do you think the ancient Greeks and Romans dreamt about on a regular Thursday, Friday, Saturday night? Kind of over to you. Send in your thoughts and suggestions over the Facebook page during the week. Send in your questions for next week. We're coming again from next week. We are in Belfast, in Northern Ireland, as I'm talking there on that day to the Classical Association of Northern Ireland. And just a reminder that it's going to be a joint presenting live Q&A next week with Helen McVeigh, the chair of the Classical Association of Northern Ireland. So send in your questions for Helen and for me, and we'll answer them together, and we'll each pick a couple to answer separately. So looking forward to seeing you next week. Same time, different background, different place, and we will have another great half hour. Thank you for joining in this half hour. Thank you for your great questions, both live on the feed and in advance. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, end of this week, weekend, and beginning of next week in the meantime. Take care. All the best.